One of the main symbols of Rosh Hashanah is apple and honey, and that's because on the first night of Rosh Hashanah we eat different foods that represent blessings that we're asking for on Rosh Hashanah. So we eat apple and honey to represent a sweet new year. The apple is sweet, the honey is sweet. The honey is not only sweet, it's also a preservative that whatever comes in contact with honey, or that you put into honey, it overpowers whatever is in it and actually becomes honey, which represents the fact that whatever is decree that comes our way for the year should be overpowered by the sweetness of honey. In other words, overpowered to become a positive, sweet new year. And similarly, other foods that we eat in Rosh Hashanah with similar messages. So we eat a pomegranate, which has many seeds that our merit should be multiplied. We eat carrots that mean the word for carrots in Yiddish and other languages is that our blessings should be multiplied. And so too we eat beets and leeks and other foods that represent our enemy should be cut off or destroyed, and so on. So the question is, but how does this work? We get a sweet year by eating apple and honey? And if we're gonna really want a really sweet year, we eat more, 2 apples and honey? I mean, what's the idea behind it? So, Shalach HaKadosh, who's a 16th, 17th century sage, he explains it in the following way. He says that human beings are affected by what they see more than even by what they know. And he gives an example. When Moses was on the mountain, and Hashem tells him that the Jewish people have sinned with a golden calf, and therefore go down. So Moshe takes the luchot and goes down the mountain, and when he sees the Jews actually worshiping the golden calf, he breaks the luchot. The question is, if he didn't want to give it to them because they worship the golden calf, why did he wait to come down and see it? He should have left it, so to speak, in heaven. But the idea was that when Moshe came down the mountain, he didn't know that he was going to break the luchot. He only decided to do so when he had the visceral sight of Jews worshiping a golden calf just after receiving the Torah. So he says he just couldn't contain himself, and he broke the luchot. That tells us that even when Hashem himself told him they are sinning, that wasn't enough to bring out of Moshe the desire to break the golden calf until he actually saw it. So the sight of something has a greater influence on us. Says the Shalah, when we eat the apple and honey, and we eat the other foods which have they have a symbolism, so we know what to pray for. We need to pray for a sweet year. We need to pray to get rid of our enemies. We absolutely need to pray for that this year. So that's the point of it. There's an analogy given of a fellow who was a wagon driver, and a wealthy fellow hires him to take him to a faraway city, and he takes him on his trip, and he goes to a shop, and he comes out of the shop with a bird cage and a bird inside the cage. And he tells the guy, this cost me 500 ruble, which is an enormous amount of money then. So the wagon driver is thinking, why would this rich guy come all the way here to buy this bird? It must be that this is the biggest delicacy. This bird is so tasty and so delicious. So he comes home, he tells his wife, we only live once. I say we take all our savings, we borrow some money, and we also splurge ourselves into one day having this bird. And so they did. They went, they bought the same bird, and she prepares it, and they sit down to the meal, and they come and they bite into it, and it's rubber. It tastes horrible. So he comes running to this wealthy guy, you fooled me, you lied to me, what was this about? 500, it tasted terrible. He says, idiot, that was a nightingale. You don't buy it to eat it, you buy it to listen to it singing. It has the sweetest voice. That's what I bought it for. And that's the message of the things that we're eating on the first night of Rosh Hashanah. It's not the food. It is the message, the symbol of what it's about. Don't get stuck on the actual eating of it. It's about telling us what to pray for, what to ask Hashem for. So it kind of gives us a vision of what we need to request. We need to ask for a sweet year. We need to ask for more merits. We need to ask that our enemies be destroyed. And that's what this is all about. There's a beautiful analogy of Rabbi Yitzchak Berditchever of the shofar that brings out this very concept. Berditchever says that there was once a king, and this king used to like to go into the forest to hunt. And he would go on himself with the incognito. No one would know who he was. Anyway, one day he does this and he gets lost and he doesn't know where he is. And now he's afraid. He's afraid that if he's caught by the robbers who are in the forest, and who knows what they might do to him. So he's looking for a way out of the forest, but he doesn't know. Finally, he sees a little hut. So he knocks on the door, and this Jew opens up the door, and he invites him in, and he says, "Oh, you must be," and he says, "I'm lost." And he says, "Okay, I'll help you out tomorrow morning. I'll help you get out of the forest. In the meantime, here's food, and here's a bed to sleep in," and so on. He was very nice to him. The king didn't tell him who he was. At the end of the trip, at the end of the next morning, when he takes him out of the forest, he says, "You should know I'm the king, and I'm going to repay you for what you've done." And actually invites him toward the palace, and he gives him a major role, a senior role in his government. Anyway, once what happened is that he messed up. The guy messed up. He did something wrong, and the king he was told that he has to be the death penalty. So he says, "Okay, I accept what the king has decreed, but I have one last request." "Okay, last request, we'll give you a last request, that the king wear the clothes that he wore when he was in the forest." And so the king puts on those clothes, and when he does, he remembers the fact that this guy saved his life. And of course, because of that, he gave him clemency. And this is what the shofar is, according to Rabbi Yitzchak Berditchever, gives us an analogy that when we blow the shofar in Rosh Hashanah, it's as if we bring back Hashem to the moment when with Jewish people said, "We will do and we will hear when we receive the Torah." So that the actual act of blowing the shofar brings you back to the state that we were in at that time. So that's the idea of the simanim. This is, according to the Shalah, this is the idea of the different symbols that we have in Rosh Hashanah to remind us what to pray for, to make it a visceral effect on us to understand what we're really asking for. But the Rebbe would say that the next step into this is the following. This is not enough. We actually have to do something a little bit more to connect the message of Rosh Hashanah to the whole year. That one said in a joke, and he knew that Germans and the Swiss are yekes. That means they're very exact and precise and organized and so on. The Italians used to be seen as more confused sometimes, or emotional and not exactly organized and specific. And so once there was in Italy, they had a locomotive, and they forgot to connect the locomotive to the rest of the trains, to the rest of the carts. As the locomotive started traveling, and all the other carts remained behind. You have to remember to connect the locomotive to the other carts. So the Rebbe said that Rosh Hashanah is the head of the year. That's the locomotive. But we have to connect it to the rest of the carts. How do you connect to the rest of the carts? When you take a practical resolution Rosh Hashanah, just like the foods that we eat as a symbol, so too we make a resolution of a mitzvah we're going to do for the whole year. That becomes that connects the high spiritual state of Rosh Hashanah to the entire year. So we have a few days to Rosh Hashanah to take on a resolution and something positive, so that we connect Rosh Hashanah to the entire year, and may that be also the vessel that Hashem should shower us with blessings, that we have a good, sweet year, and indeed a year where we don't suffer anymore. The Jewish people don't suffer in Israel, all over the world. We should only have peace and tranquility. The hostages should come back, and our enemies should be eradicated, and we should have peace on the world for the coming of Mashiach. Shana Tova.